we got this intercooler in and we are pushing it as far as fitment goes. Spent a little while cutting up the core support. Again, the customer does not care. He said make it fit. He was cool with cutting it up a little bit. Getting this intercooler in here is a tight fit. This car's already tight everywhere else. I needed to get this in so I could finish putting the wastegates in, figure out my radiator and fan situation, figure out the piping. So we got it in. I need to make some mounts for it. It's probably gonna live where it's at right now. I couldn't spare a single millimeter in any direction with this thing. I did plan on getting one that was, I think, about 3 inches shorter. That was the one that was back-ordered from Treadstone. They did have this one in stock. After doing some measurements, it was pretty much a perfect fit. I could see where the 3-inch shorter one would probably be a little bit of a help right now. But that is the intercooler in the car. I do have the front bumper and grille just kind of loosely bolted on. The bottom of the intercooler is flush with the bottom of the bumper. Does come down at a little bit of an angle. We do have just the hot side end tank sticking out of the bottom here, just a little bit, but it is level with the frame rail. That is problem number 2, is how am I gonna get a charge pipe into this intercooler? I think I'm gonna make it happen. It's just gonna be a little bit tricky. Obviously there's no room there right now. I'm gonna cut off this 3-inch coupler that comes on the intercooler, and I do have a super tight radius cast aluminum elbow. If I need to cut into the frame rail a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. I can probably get away with just notching this inner part right here and leaving this piece out here, because this is the only thing that kind of bolts the bumper on the outside, and then notching out up here back to the rear bolt that actually through bolts all the way through the frame. And once I get all that out of the way and cut down my cast aluminum elbow, I can weld that straight to here and then go straight up, because the bottom of the turbo will be up there, so that'll actually work out. Or I can kind of radius this frame rail out on the top side and run the pipe straight through, but SOL on a bumper mount for this side on the front. I'm sure I could come up with another, fabricate another mount on the inside here. I mean, I got plenty of room up there coming off the top of the frame rail. I would like to keep the way the bumper mounts kind of original. That way, if he ever has to replace the parts or something ever happens, it gets bent up, it has to get replaced. That way we don't have to fabricate a whole nother bumper bracket just to bolt a new bumper back on. We have really, really good fitment here. I mean, I got about a 1/2 inch to the grill on either side. It's centered up. I'm gonna make some standoffs that come off the frame rails down there to mount this guy up. I still do have a decent amount of room here to the front balancer. I think I can still get a radiator and fan in here. It is gonna be a very tight fit. With the truck spacing balancer, obviously, it's out really far. I really kind of want to build it around this truck spacing balancer, because that way, if I know it fits with that, it'll fit with whatever spacing that we put on it. And we only have to drive an alternator with it again, so, I think we are going to go the electric water pump route. Now, I do have another option. I could put the radiator in the back. It's going to kind of complicate things a little bit as far as plumbing and stuff goes, but it won't be the end of the world. Maybe I'll run that by the customer and see what he thinks. It would borrow a lot of room up front here for sure if we could put it in the back. For what this car is, it's not like a dedicated no prep car or race car, so having the radiator in the back is just kind of like an extra inconvenience. But I'm going to get some intercooler mounts made up for this car. Now that I know that it fits, I can make some standoffs. I'm probably going to use some square tube, use some riv nut inserts on the inside of the pipe. That way, the intercooler can just be bolted right in and out. And I still think I'm probably going to make this modular to where once I figure out my radiator size, I'm going to make the radiator bolt to the back of the intercooler. That way everything is just 4 bolts, all comes out of the car. So let's get going on that. Just got back from Tractor Supply with some square tube and some flat stock, some Reese's cups. Can't work without Reese's cups. I'm going to start making some mounts for this intercooler. I want to get this thing mounted up so I can take the front end back off of it and then finalize the mounts for that. Also, guys, I got a new tool that I didn't get to show off yet. Pretty excited about it. When Jeremy had his shop down here, he had one of these as well. So Swag Off-Road makes this really nice table that you can mount basically your bandsaw into. So this is a Harbor Freight branded Bauer brand bandsaw. Pretty similar to the Milwaukee. The Milwaukee's a lot more expensive, and I have used, this is my second Bauer. I've been using them weekly for years now. I made it like 2.5 years on my last one. What winds up happening, at least on the last one, this rubber wheel on the end gets really cracked up and dry, and it'll start falling apart. They do make these wheels where you can buy just this piece of rubber and replace it. I didn't do it in time, and when it broke, it actually got sucked behind this wheel and into the bearing. I just threw it out. I think they're like $160 or less than that. So it was as much use as I got out of it. It didn't owe me anything. Now that I have this table, it's going to be a lot nicer to cut some material up without having to drag the big bandsaw out to cut some stuff up. So I'm going to mark this pipe up. I need about 8 inches, clean the frame rail off, get it tacked on, get my nut certs in, mark it where I need it, and then, you know, I'll have the driver's side mounted up. That side's going to go pretty quick. The passenger side's going to be a little bit more complicated, but I'm going to get going on that. So I got this pipe welded out, just capped off. Same thickness as the square tube. Pretty easy to weld up, ran about 50 amps, 035 filler. I am going to just run the edges of this on my belt sander so it's like a nice rolled edge. Not really trying to hide a weld, but would just think it might look a little bit better if it's got a nice rolled edge to it than that, you know, square cap. And just like that, bevel the edges. Hard to focus, perfect, love that. Yeah, just beveled the corners off and the edges, so when it's mounted and you look at it, there's no sharp edges to catch your hands or nothing on. Once it's painted up, it'll look really nice. All right, intercooler's mounted in the car. Definitely got these mounts figured out, sorted exactly the way that I was kind of planning it out. Got the passenger side one done, got the flag welded on it, got everything mocked back up. Again, measured 2 or 3 times to make sure that all of our gaps were right. The front end is pretty loosely bolted on the car, so there is still some room for adjustment. The distance between the frame rails isn't going to change though, and that's where the intercooler's mounted. I am going to notch out the core support just a little bit more. It's touching on the one side. It was kind of a rough cut. I mean, it's just big enough for the intercooler to fit in there and get everything mocked up where I wanted it, but I definitely need to make some more modifications. So this is our passenger side mount. You can see, got it welded to the frame. The flag mounted on it. I mean, it's in there. I am going to, once I get this whole front end pulled back off, I'm going to weld both of these across the top. This one still needs to be welded across the front. I just couldn't get to it with the intercooler in there. And underneath, I think what the plan here is going to be, you can see I got just a little bit of intercooler down below the bumper here. It's just the way this intercooler is designed, and it's pretty much flush with the frame rail. I really wanted to make sure what I'm putting in this car is going to support the power that we plan to make now and expand into the future. And the core sizes that I was looking into, everything was going to wind up being either 4 inches or 6 inches on the intercooler core. This one's 3.5, and Treadstone rates it for 1,300 crank horsepower. We should definitely be clear for 1,000 wheel. If anybody is curious, this intercooler is a Treadstone. The part number is TRV250-9. It's in the car, it fits. I'm a little bit less stressed about how that's all gonna work out now, because that was kind of the big deal with this since I got the car in, was getting that fitted. Now what I can do is I can take the front end back off, finish welding out the brackets for the intercooler, put the turbo kit back on the car, and I need to mount the other wastegate still. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't gonna have any intercooler clearance with where I wanted to put it. And then once I get that done, I'm gonna put the turbo back on the car, and then we could start making some piping. videoing about 10 seconds ago, the biggest piece of shit just drove by. Got a lot of this intercooler piping done. Pretty much down to the passenger side now. Still got to notch this frame rail, it looks like. Everything else laid out really nice though. I had a mock-up LS3 throttle body, just threw that on for this. Wound up putting a cast 90 right on here. Fitment's really good. Did some pie cuts, you know, just laid it out. Tried to keep it tight. I was gonna bring this pipe down at an angle and run this 90 straight back. I wanted room for the radiator, and keeping this pipe up nice and high will leave just enough room for the radiator, and we got plenty of hood clearance. I'm gonna wind up ordering a Griffin radiator from Summit. It's kind of like a custom fit deal. I think it's about 22 inches wide and 15.5 inches tall. It's basically gonna be just above the intercooler on the inside and about flush with the bottom of the end tank on the bottom. It's coming along. I feel like it's slow progress. It's been a couple weeks that the car's been here, but we are getting it done. Everything else still fits really good. Just need to get that done, get the radiator in, mount the radiator, and then make an exhaust. And I'm pretty much done with this fabrication project. I still do have to put that other wastegate on, but now that I know where all this stuff lays out, I know how much room I have for it. So now I'm just gonna get cutting on this frame rail so I can get this other pipe done. If you were wondering how violent these hole saws are, just wound up snapping my bit off in there, about broke my wrist. So guess I'll throw a new bit in there and get back at it. Just want to explain the situation that I'm having here. I already don't want to work tonight. It's my late night, it's Wednesday. I just want to get this intercooler piping done. I need to finish drilling the hole through the frame, and I broke the drill bit on my chuck. I put a new drill bit in the chuck, but I can't tighten it because it uses a 3.5 millimeter Allen key. 3.5 millimeter, no problem, right? I got this set right here. No 3.5. It's not standard, by the way. I checked every standard one that I have here. I Googled it, it's 3.5. I have this whole bucket of Allen keys, not a single 3.5. I have this whole tray of Allen keys, also not a single 3.5. I have this set from Snap-on. I have this set from Husky. I have this set of Torx and Allen keys. And I also have a bunch of miscellaneous ones laying in here. 0 3.5 millimeter Allen keys. I'm going a little crazy at the moment, but I'm gonna find an Allen key, which I knew where, so I could show you how fucked up that was from my 4-inch hole saw that I broke. It's just one of those nights, I'm telling you. It's fucking one of those nights. One of those nights. Well, you get the point. I have another chuck, and I broke the pins. There's locating pins. Oh, it's right here. I broke these pins. They're so loose now that when I tighten my 3-inch hole saw up on there, it fucking does all kinds of crazy dumb shit, because this has a flathead. I would much rather use this. I might actually try to use this and just fucking deal with it at this point. I need to get this hole drilled, so back to it. I've ever had one of these motherfuckers grab before, but boy does it hurt. So I'm gonna put my leg behind it. That way, next time it locks up, it doesn't twist my hand into the balancer like it did the first time. I'm not having fun. Like that, perfect 90 degree. I'm gonna clean these edges up, go test fit it on the car. You can see my face in there. edges, clean insides. I'm gonna wipe this pipe out, and we're gonna test it on the car. Rewelding this pipe for the third time tonight. I'm gonna tack it and check the fitment again, and then I'm gonna fully weld it out. But this is just one of those nights. Alright guys, this was one of those nights that just fought me. There's a lot more I could get done tonight. Once you get in that mood, you tend to just not care or rush, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to call it a night. I did get the pipe done. All of the intercooler piping is completely finished for this car, minus like a couple welds here and there. I have to weld one of the outlets. I have to weld the inlet on the intercooler. I put a little 45 on there so it would clear the frame. The charge pipe from the turbo to the intercooler is finished. The charge pipe from the intercooler to the throttle body is finished, minus a blow-off valve. So I still have to get a flange and a whole blow-off valve for that. Turbo dumps right through the inner fender well. I did have to drill this hole. I used a 4-inch hole saw on that, mainly because the flange for the turbo is about 4 inches in diameter, and I wanted to make it so you could pop it in and out without having to take like the whole car apart, just like everything else. This bottom side here is nearly flush. I do have some adjustability in this. I want to slip a coupler over this and see how much room I have on it. I don't want to get the coupler into the bend. If I do get close to being into the bend, I can adjust this out just a little bit and weld a little, you know, probably another 1/2 inch of straight with a bead rolled on the end of it. Same thing here, got to weld this up. All the mounts are done. Intercooler piping's done. Let me pop this top tube on. We are flushing the throttle body. The pipe literally comes right to the edge of this. I got a roll of bead on there. Same over here. I got a roll of bead on it. It sits dead flush on this 90. That's welded up. All of this is welded up. We are pretty much waiting for a radiator. Going to be waiting for material to do the downpipe. I want to get the radiator in the car first. I really am just focused on getting all of this front end stuff done. The customer may want to take the car back and start working on some other stuff. The exhaust can wait because I do have to build out a full exhaust under the car. We're not going all the way to the tailpipe, but we are going at least behind the driver, probably within a 4-inch muffler. I am happy that I am done this intercooler piping project. It went fairly smooth until tonight. You saw the drill kept grabbing on me, trying to break my wrist, cutting the frame out, just a little bit tricky. And then I fought a little bit getting this pipe welded. I marked it, tacked it, broke the tack, tried to re-weld it where that tack was, tacked it on the backside, fitted it to the car, wasn't even close. Tried to break the tacks, but they were a little too thick, had to grind them, and then reline the pipe up, tack it again, re-cleaned everything up on the belt sander, marked it one last time, because again, that's how this night was going. Then I used some nice thick tacks so they wouldn't break on me again. Lined up perfect, fully welded out, done. It's been a night. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm just glad this project's done. I'll catch you on the next one.